Happy Monday, freshmen. This is your English 1 Monday video for week 6. This is the last week of this grading period. That doesn't mean the semester's over. It doesn't mean you should stop trying. It just means that we are getting to the end of a grading period, and you might want to check in with your teachers and make sure that you have what you want on your next progress report. All right, so this week we will be exploring personification and extended metaphors in poetry. Which is why for Black History Month today I have a Langston Hughes poem. I think it's actually only part of a poem, but it captures what we're doing this week, so we're going to look at it a little bit closer later, but I'll read it for the first time right now. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. And we're going to look at that a little bit closer, but Langston Hughes, I'm sure you've read poems by him before. Very, very influential poet from the Harlem Renaissance. Amazing dude. All right, to get on with our video. Today I'm going to go through the assignments for the week. We're going to do some notes and some suggestions for where to keep them. Perhaps you still have your English notebook from last semester, but I'm going to give some options for where you might want to start storing your notes, especially if we transition to back in the building. All right, so the assignments for this week, you will have this weekly video and the quiz that will come after, so make sure you're paying attention so that you can get 100% on that little quiz. Then you will have the third section of the Poet X on Edpuzzle. A lot of students are starting to not try very hard on these, and I really do want you to answer fully. So just so you know that writing I don't know or IDK does not earn you credit for that question, okay? So even if something is challenging and you don't understand it, you should give it your best try. And it might require you to even re-watch that part of the Edpuzzle that you missed, and then start to really think about it. All right? They are graded on effort, so if you get it wrong, it's not that big of a deal. But IDK is not right or wrong. That's just lazy. So do a little bit better than that. And then you'll have an in-class assignment either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when you have me for class. All right, so we're going to start some notes. Before we begin those notes, though, I want to give you some ideas of where you maybe want to store your notes. So, of course, a notebook is perfect. A notebook is great. You remember things really well if you write them down. So I highly recommend just having a notebook. Plus, it's a change up from having to stare at a Chromebook or type into your Chromebook all the time. Google Docs is it's a oldie but a goodie. So you can totally, just be typing into a Google Doc as you take notes. I honestly have nothing wrong, especially during NTI, taking notes on the phone app, on the Notes app on your phone. That's totally fine. I have lots and lots and lots of notes in my Notes app. Very useful. And then there's a website called keep.google.com where you can go, and you may have used this with other teachers even. This is a great place, and it has all sorts of organizing features, so you could change, maybe all of your English notes are in yellow, but all of your math notes are in blue, whatever. It's a cool website. And then also, for vocabulary, feel free to make your own Quizlets. If you make your own Quizlet, you can always return to those notes and those terms and practice them. All right, so if you need to pause right now and get something to write with or figure out how you're going to take your notes, now would be the time to pause. All right, so the way that I present notes, you may not remember, but if you do from last semester, I encourage you to write down everything that is underlined. I will provide some examples that are not underlined that you do not need to write down, but I encourage you to write down everything that's underlined. Notice the sentence, write down everything that is underlined, is not underlined, so you don't need to write it down. All right, so these are English 1 poetry notes. I'm having you take notes on two terms because they are more important and a little bit more complicated than some of the other poetry terms that we've focused on. The first one is extended metaphor. We have talked about metaphors and similes before, so we know that that those are both comparisons. You compare two things. It's raining cats and dogs. You're comparing the size of the raindrops to the size of small animals like cats and dogs, okay? So that's a metaphor. But an extended metaphor is an exploration of that comparison that goes beyond just the single line, okay? So my first example is actually a non-example. Life is a roller coaster. That's a metaphor for sure, but it is not an extended metaphor. An extended metaphor would be a little bit more complicated, okay? So life is a roller coaster. You wait a really long time for the most exciting parts. You have some highs and lows, and then it's over way too fast. So that is a lot more than just one aspect of a roller coaster. Life is a roller coaster. We're exploring other ways in which life is a roller coaster. Okay, so it really is an exploration, exploration of how the metaphor might apply in several different ways. Okay, we are going to look at this closer with the Poet-X as well. And then your second term, you don't need to write poetry notes again, but your second term is personification. And notice when you look at the word personification, you should notice the word person. It has something to do with person. And so that term is when an author gives human characteristics to something non-human. Think making something more like a person is personification. So a couple of examples. You don't have to write either one of these down, but so that you can see them and start to recognize them in text. The lightning danced across the night's sky. So lightning is not human. Lightning can't literally dance, but you get a more of a mental image when you think about lightning dancing across the sky. Okay, so that dancing is something that humans do. Lightning is a non-human thing. One more example. The old car huffed and puffed down the street. Okay, so the cars can't breathe. Okay, they can't, but you get the idea that this car is chugging along, okay? So it's giving this huffed and puffed quality to this old car, making you imagine like an old person, I should be nice, making you imagine like someone really struggling to make it down the street, okay? And that's this car. So anytime you give human characteristics, and you probably do it more often than you think, to something non-human is personification. So taking a slightly closer look at this poem by Langston Hughes, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. So we have personification, and maybe you want to think about it really quick and identify it for yourself, but I'm going to go ahead and point it out. So we have personification because dreams cannot actually die, okay? They can disappear, they can fade in your memory, but dying is something that people do. So here we have an example of personification. We also have an example of a metaphor. It's not really much of an extended metaphor, unless Langston Hughes were to go into it a little bit further, but we're comparing life to a broken-winged bird that cannot fly, okay? So we are comparing two different things. All right, if you have any questions, as always, email me, comment on this video, comment on the assignments, whatever you need, let me know. Thank you guys so much. I cannot wait to see you in live classes.